Hello bread fans, this is Jay of Insane Coaster Junkie, and welcome to a very special video. Today, I will be diving deep into my home park, Waldameer, and talk about its Iceberg that I made. In case you don't know, the Iceberg, it's an internet template to explain various topics such as artists or movies, and talk about these topics in great detail. The tip of the iceberg will show common knowledge, and as you dive deeper and deeper into the iceberg, you will go into more obscure and unfamiliar territory to the point it's almost lost to time, and only the biggest Superman fans, such as myself, know. Today's video is my grand research of the park and its lore. I have a lot of information that I have searched over the years that I've known and my common knowledge of Waldameer, so this should be a fun video to grasp at. So without further ado, let's get started at the top. Starting off at the Iceberg, this one's a pretty simple and represents when Waldameer first opened. The park first opened in 1896 as Hoffman's Grove and served as a destination at the end of the trolley line. The trolley line started around in downtown area and was a 4-mile, 30-minute trip to the park. And at the end of the destination showed various rides and attractions. With this in mind, it is one of 11 trolley parks left in operation and is still thriving over 125 years later. 1896 also makes this park the 4th oldest amusement park in Pennsylvania and the 10th oldest amusement park in the United States. Waldameer continues to flow about 400,000 to 500,000 guests per operating season and continues to expand on an annual basis with either new rides or slides or cosmetic improvements, and this keeps me coming back time and time again to this park. Ravine Flyer 2 is Waldameer's signature attraction and has been operating at the park since 2008. In case you don't know what this coaster is, this is a gravity group wooden coaster that consists of airtime hills, bank turns, and a rather aggressive layout up and around the ravine. At a height of 85 feet, a drop of 120 feet, speeds of 60 miles an hour, and over 3,000 feet of track, this coaster rips through the course. And this serves as a successor to the original Ravine Flyer and has received immense recognition over the years. It's the only winning roller coaster in the world to travel over a major highway with Peninsula Drive and has received a few awards from Amusement Today in its tenure, such as Best New Ride in the World for 2008 and has been ranked in the top 10 wooden coasters of the world since 2009. It's arguably the ride that put Waldameer on the map, resulting in a 20% increase of attendance for the 2008 season, and is definitely my favorite ride at Waldameer. Ravine Flyer 2 is worth it alone. Waterworld is Waldameer's water park that has been in operation since June 1986. Locals will definitely notice the aggressive expansion the water park has received over the past several years. From 1993 to 2014, no attractions were added to the water park, only a few cosmetic improvements from time to time. Since 2015, the water park has expanded massively, including a massive wave pool, 2 new kids areas, and 2 massive slides with Cannonball and Rally Racer, along with some of the other notable water slides such as Awesome Twosome, Liquid Lightning, Bermuda Triangle, and Raging and Wild River, as well as their Endless River. This in turn made Waldameer a all-day trip for families and is just much of a highlight as the amusement park. There are plans to expand the water park further in the future, so the journey is not over for the Splash and Safari of the East. This water park is one of my favorites out there, and with the aggressive expansion and the immense lineup they have already, the future looks bright for Waterworld. Before you slam your electronic device on the table, this has more meaning than it meets the eye. I know you see my name on your screen, and you think, why are you doing this to yourself? Not only it's a silly plug on myself, but my channel has made it a presence at the park. In recent years, my videos have served as a tool for new and upcoming fans of Waldameer, and the massive extent and knowledge that I have has led people to try this park and has left mostly positive reviews about it. Some viewers even told me that they chose Waldameer over other parks because of my passion and love and the information I give. This means a lot to me as I strive to make the best content and update as much as I can. It's funny how a small park like this can have such a big impact, and it's cool from a social media perspective that I can be associated with a park like Waldameer. Yes, I might be the king of Waldameer or Insane Coaster Cleaner, call me whatever you like, but it's the dedication that counts. For those wondering who the owner is, meet Paul Nelson. He has been the owner of Waldameer since 1978, but has started at the park at the early age of 11 in 1945, when a family friend and original owner, Alex Moeller, introduced Nelson to the park. He would soon work up the ranks from going from washing dishes to being general manager of the park and then eventually taking full ownership today. Nowadays, the Nelson family owns the park alongside with the Gorman family, including Paul Nelson's son-in-law, Steve Gorman, who currently runs as president of the park, and Brian Gorman, vice president of operations. From working at the park with personal experience, they are all very nice people to work with and show the biggest dedication to keep this park afloat through the good and the bad. And their work ethics are some of the best in the industry. I had the privilege to meet all these people and work with them, and they are excellent people. So if you see them around, make sure to give them a hi and thank them for their dedication. Waldameer is not some fancy jargon that people made up back in the day. Waldameer literally has a meaning. If you are German or have German descent, this one's for you a little bit of history. Waldameer is translated from German to English as woods by the sea, which is a literal translation in terms of geography around the area, being situated near a peninsula with Presque Isle State Park, as well as Lake Erie close by. In the early days of Waldameer, they even have an authentic Hofbräu German beer garden, a rather popular restaurant complete with singing waiters, but unfortunately it was closed during the Prohibition period in the United States in 1919. There's not really much German ties today in Waldameer, but if you took it from a literal perspective, this is what Waldameer is. So if you're from Germany, Waldameer, Deutschland. Waldameer has a set of bears as their official mascot of the park, Wally and Wendy Bear. They were first introduced in 1994, and throughout its time they would host meet and greets throughout the park with guests and even feature their own show annually at the Showtime Theater. It's so much of an impact that two of the rides in the North End are named after the bears. SS Wally, a Zamperla tugboat, and Wendy's Tea Party, a Zamperla teacup ride. Not much is known of their presence today as in terms of operations, as they haven't been seen on the Midway since 2019. The pandemic did postpone their return, but maybe they are on quote-unquote extended vacation. Time will ever tell if they will ever return. During the 1920s, the period was known as the Golden Age of roller coasters, and Waldameer would create a roller coaster way ahead of its time. Named Ravine Flyer, this coaster opened in 1922 and was built by the famous John Miller and designed by George Sinclair. This roller coaster would travel over and around a ravine in the back of the park, as well as cross over a road, which is the modern-day equivalent of Peninsula Drive. This coaster was very thrilling for 16 years until it struck tragedy. On August 7, 1938, the ride valley over the road after it failed to clear one of the hills of the ride. 19-year-old Clarence Search suffered a skull fracture after he became fear-stricken and jumped from the coaster, 18 feet to the street below. He died later that night in the hospital due to his injuries. During investigation, it was rumored that the fall was deemed a suicide, but further suggested it was just a fall as a freak accident. Speculation was that the young man had stepped out of the car on the side of the track that had no catwalk and the park neglected safety issues. Regardless, Alex Muller's wife, Lydia Roof, was so distraught from the accident that the ride was condemned and demanded to be removed at the end of the 1938 season. The whole mystery of this ride is worth a separate video that I plan on remaking at some point in the future. The station was later converted as a picnic shelter and still stands today as Lakeview Grove, next to the coaster's successor, Ravine Flyer 2. Monkey Island was a very popular attraction at Waldameer during the 1920s, and it was the closest that the park ever got to having zoo animals. The attraction consisted of several monkeys free to roam around a rather large exhibit. This attraction was proved to be successful for over 3 decades until the early 1960s. There was a rumor that the monkeys were sold to the newly formed NASA and were to be used for their upcoming space program, but sadly there is no evidence to prove this claim or why it was removed, but it could be possible that it was due to low attendance. The station for the modern-day Sky Ride stands in place today of this beloved attraction. When you think of Wacky Shack, what do you think? I usually think of an old-school dark ride that's one of the best in the country and the only one of its type left in the world. But very few people think of the smell of the ride. Many guests have told me before that it smells like pee or just awful, but I'm here to confirm that it's not the case. In June 2020, during the pandemic before Waldameer opened, their social media revealed to the public the long-time question. The real smell is called ozone, an invisible scent that is produced from the wheels traveling through the electric track. During the 2020 season, Alex and I even nicknamed this ride to Ozone to complement its unique smell. Now, if only Waldameer released this as a candle, that would make my fandom complete. Steve Gorman has 2 sons, Brian and David. However, David Gorman does not work for Waldameer, but however is still involved with the park with the Waldameer Mystery Files book series. This is a realistic fiction series mainly targeted to children in elementary school, but as an avid fan of the park, these books were a must-read. The 3 books, The Long Lost Locket, The Sneaky Sabotage, and The Curious Clues, are based on Waldameer attractions, and the characters must solve a mystery that is within that ride. They can be found wherever books are sold, and I highly recommend them from reading them. Also, David is active within its social media, including an Instagram page and YouTube channel, which the latter also focuses on simple grammar and phonics for elementary school children. Several rides that used to operate at Waldameer a long time ago have modern-day counterparts, and it's amazing to look at the comparisons then versus now. One such attraction was the Caterpillar, a simple Himalaya ride. The modern equivalent would be Music Express in 2013, which operates one of the best cycles I've ever seen with that ride. To be simple with these comparisons, we're going to do a lightning round. The LA Bridge Ferris wheel to the Chance Giant wheel, Fun in the Dark to Wacky Shack, and Mill Run to Thunder River, and so much more that I can't list here. It's amazing to see that old school Waldameer is very similar to Waldameer in the present day, at least attraction-wise, and one can hope for some rather cool rides for the future of the park. Long before it was shortened to just Waldameer and after the days of Hoffman's Grove, the park was known in its early days as Waldameer Beach Park. This operated similar to how Conneaut Lake Park used to operate, with a massive beach, a few rides and attractions scattered throughout the park, even housing developments on the property. Not much is known about the difference in terms of operation under the name Waldameer Beach Park. However, during the 1930s and 40s, a series of massive storms eroded the beaches away and is no longer part of the Waldameer operation. For those wondering, the beach was located in between an undeveloped wooded area between Kelso Beach and Sarah's Campground. The park still owns the property to this day. From 2008 to 2016, there was a rather cool way to get insight about new Waldameer updates throughout the park. Called Waldablog, this page run by an employee who will remain anonymous due to privacy would constantly give updates going around the park throughout the year, updating you guys. As a teenager, this was my main source of Waldameer news from 2013 to 2015, and this is where I closely followed the additions of Music Express to the giant wave pool. These posts were a blast to read, and it's a shame that there are no more posts, as the same person now operates the Waldameer social media and along with updates, posts some rather cool information, some of which are in this video. I remember Waldablog like it was yesterday, and who knows, maybe I am the modern day Waldablog. I will leave a link below so you can look at those prior information, because this was some cool reads back in the day. In 2012, Paul Nelson would announce a new 10-year, $20 million plan for the park. This plan called for a massive expansion for Waterworld, which would happen with some slight adjustments, but the Dry Parks plan was massively changed. Behind Rainbow Gardens, there was a 5-acre parcel of land that has been unused since the 1930s and 40s that Waldameer still owns. However, Lake Erie and a massive ravine were concerns if this was going to be built. Waldameer revealed that the new coaster would consist of an incline railway to connect the land masses, a water ride which was most likely a shoot-to-shoot ride with a 70-foot drop, a family ride, a restaurant, and picnic area. It was also rumored that a Mirage Sky Loop would go down there, but sadly there is no evidence to back up this claim. The plan would eventually fold, and the reason is unknown at this time, but research strongly suggests that the land is unstable due to erosion, but we have no clear information. I would have loved to see this expansion, but now with their new 10-year plan, it makes sense where the Dry Park expansion is going. It would have been nice, but this land is very unstable to put rides here, and I'm kind of glad it's not happening. If you walk down the main midway, you will see a clown sitting on the bench. Now if you're a fan of my channel, you'll know him as a killer clown who wants me dead, but there is a real life connection to this. The clown's actual name is Charlie Cox, much like the ICJ universe, but instead of killing me, Charlie Cox was a longtime fan of the park, as well as a gardener who loved observing guests. This story was also told to my grandfather Wingnut via Paul Nelson in 2017, and what was said was a little bit fuzzy nowadays, but what I can grasp from this story is that he was a lazy worker and was frozen as a statue to learn his lesson. But take that with a grain of salt. The statue was purchased from Tampa, Florida nearly 40 years ago, and it still stands strong as an excellent photo op, or in my world, trying to avoid his lasers. As a fun fact during my research, my friend Abby, a ride supervisor, told me that her dad knew Charlie Cox's family, but unfortunately, not much information was given about his presence, so it's all speculation from here of what Charlie Cox's actual origins are. In 1991, a new tower was created in Waterworld. This new slide, called Awesome Twosome, was a winding tube slide that was popular with guests. So much so that the following season would introduce Midnight Plunge, another tube slide with a rather large drop at the end. This combined area called Awesome Tower was built in mind with provisions for a third water slide. This slide was set to be named Liquid Lightning, and the layout consisted of a combined layout of Awesome Twosome in the first half and Raging River in the second half with an open flume section. The slide would get cancelled for unknown reasons, and for nearly 25 years, footers and a sign were the only signs left of Liquid Lightning. In 2014, Midnight Plunge was renamed to Liquid Lightning in honor of its original name, and it wasn't until 2018 when a new slide was introduced with Cannonball, a pro slide bowl slide. It would have been cool to see what this original Liquid Lightning was like, but I much prefer Cannonball in regards to that. It took us nearly 25 years to get here, but it's glad that we have finally the completed Awesome Tower. It's a common misconception in the Waldameer lore that Chaos was the first ride in the park to invert riders, but actually, 2 rides preceded this. Back in the 1930s, an Irely Lupo plane was added. This consisted of 4 riders in a plane-shaped car and would invert several times. This was Waldameer's first true thrill ride. The ride was removed at an unknown date, and many years later, Looper was added. This ride, where you can find a similar ride model at Knoebels today, consisted of various drum-shaped vehicles that riders can control their own flips. This ride was removed in 1963 for the addition of Tilt-A-Whirl, and it wasn't until 56 years later where the next inverting flat ride was added. In some ways, Chaos honors these 2 defunct flat rides, more so of the Lupo plane, with its unique riding cycle. To this day, there hasn't been a roller coaster that inverts riders as of yet, but rumors have been swirling for a brand new roller coaster specifically with inversions. Maybe an RMC Raptor could bridge this gap? The world may never know. Not too many people know that Waldameer actually had some tough competition throughout the 1980s. With the rise of Coney at Lake Park about 45 minutes away with aggressive expansion, Waldameer was in a tough position, but it got even tougher with competition literally across the street from the park. Enter Funtown, a small amusement park that opened in 1978 by future Splash Lagoon and Scott Enterprises owner Nick Scott. This park consisted of a few attractions such as an unknown Wild Mouse coaster, a gas-powered Irely Octopus, go-karts, and their highlight was the giant sack slide. They also had a water park with a wave pool and a few water slides even before Waterworld was considered. The park would change names to Wild Waters Water Park in 1986 and operated solely as a water park for the next 4 seasons. The park would unfortunately close for good in 1989, most likely due to increased competition from Waldameer with their aggressive expansion of Waterworld. Nick Scott would not go quietly and open up Splash Lagoon, an indoor water park 14 years later in 2003, which is still popular to this day with various water slides and pools and is slowly expanding like the days of Funtown. One of the most bizarre and short-lived attractions in Waldameer history was Moonwalk. This was a rather simple kids attraction that basically was a giant bounce house at the front of the park. Not too many people know it, as it only lasted 4 seasons from 1979 to 1982. It was removed most likely due to low ridership, and the following year saw the addition of the beloved Mini E Kiddie Ride, which lasted until 2013. Today, a ticket booth stands in this plot of land, serving as the entrance from West 8th Street. Not much was known about Moonwalk, and it's almost lost to time, but I have to thank Waldameer's social media, especially on their Facebook page, for bringing life about this short-lived attraction. Waldameer has quite a lot of lore behind the scenes. From the obvious to the most obscure facts, there's plenty of information to grasp, and if you wanted to learn more about my home park, this was a perfect way to dive deeper about some cool things about the park. Before we go, I want to credit my good friend Nick of Cedar Flags for the inspiration for this video, as his Cedar Point and Kings Island Iceberg videos were very fun to watch, and I wanted to do something similar but put the insane coaster junkie twist to it. I will leave resources down below for some of the facts in this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you all in the parks.